You think the open road is safe, don't you? Endless highways, glowing truck stops, the hum of 18 wheels carrying life through the night. But what if I told you some truckers never made it home? That behind every mile marker, every shadowy rest stop, and every stretch of forgotten highway, something darker waits. The Appalachian backroads, the desert highways of Nevada. The lonely, icy trails of Montana truckers whisper about them, but rarely out loud. Stories of lights that appear in the mirrors. When no one's behind you, voices on the CB radio calling your name, even when you're driving alone. Worst of all, those strange hitchhikers who vanish before you ever make it to the next town. These are not campfire tales. They are true stories, told by truckers who swore they'd never drive the same road again. And tonight, on Scary Dark Narrations, you're about to hear them all. But before we begin, if you love real horror, the kind that doesn't let you sleep at night, make sure you subscribe to Scary Dark Narrations and turn on notifications. Because every week we bring you the darkest, most chilling true stories you won't find anywhere else. So buckle up, lock your doors, and keep your eyes on the road ahead. Because in this video we'll uncover the 7 most disturbing true trucker horror stories, and trust me, by the end of it, you'll never look at a quiet highway the same way again.
Can you hear me?
The snow was coming down so hard, it felt like the sky was erasing the world, one white line at a time. My wipers were useless, smearing more than they cleared. The cab smelled faintly of diesel, stale coffee, and the cheap air freshener my wife always made me hang from the rearview mirror. Linda hates when the truck smells like a gas station, I thought, gripping the wheel tighter. It was a normal run Los Angeles to Nashville, nothing unusual about the load or the route, yet a strange heaviness had been crawling into my gut ever since I left Amarillo. I had my CB set to channel 19, like always. Chatter of other drivers was the only thing that kept me from feeling completely alone out there. Updates on road conditions. Parking spots at truck stops. The occasional bad joke. My Cobra 29 was my pride and joy, crystal clear even on rough nights. But tonight the airwaves were eerily quiet. SFX. Faint static fading to silence around 11:30 p.m. In the no-man's land between Amarillo and the Oklahoma border, the radio went dead. No static, no clicks, just nothing. I fiddled with the squelch knob, checked the mic, even crawled one arm under the dash to wiggle the wiring. Everything seemed fine. Then it exploded back to life. SFX, loud burst of static. The noise was so sharp I jerked upright, nearly swerving. The squelch was still maxed out. It shouldn't have broken through. Yet the voice came in clear, as though whispering directly into my ear. Eastbound Pete with the reefer trailer. Slow down in this weather, driver. My heart knocked once, hard. I peered out into the snow-blurred dark. Not a single pair of headlights anywhere ahead or behind. I was completely alone. But the voice had described my rig perfectly. Eastbound Peterbilt, refrigerated trailer. Coincidence? Maybe, yet something in the tone hollow, distant, like it was echoing up from a dry well, froze my spine. I thumbed the mic. This is the Eastbound Pete. Who am I talking to? A hiss of static. 10 seconds. Then the voice returned, clearer, but still unnatural. You're making good time, Mike. Been pushing hard since you left Amarillo, haven't you? The wheel went slick in my hands. I hadn't said my name over the radio. I hadn't told anyone I'd come from Amarillo. My logbook showed a 9:15 departure from the truck stop, exactly as the voice claimed. How do you know my name? My voice cracked just a little. Oh, Mike, I know a lot about you. 23 years on the road. Married to Linda for 18. 2 kids in college. Same route, same stops, same meal at the diner in Oklahoma City. I gripped the wheel tighter. Every detail was dead on. Emma at Texas State. David at Oklahoma University. Mel's Diner, chicken fried steak special. Who the hell is this? I reached for my phone with one hand, thinking robbery, thinking stalker. The screen glared back, no signal. Impossible, Interstate 40 was dotted with towers. SFX. Low drone rising, do not bother with the phone mic. The voice now filled the cab as if it was inside my truck. No one can help you, I've been waiting. Someone like you, alone. Someone who won't be missed for a few days if something were to happen. The accelerator sank under my foot. 80 miles an hour despite the snow? I had to get to the next stop, any stop. My pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. Running won't help, Mike. I can see you speeding up. I can see your knuckles white on the wheel. I can see the sweat on your forehead despite the cold. I flicked my eyes to the mirrors, empty. Headlights, taillights, nothing but swirling snow. Whoever this was, they weren't in a truck behind me, weren't anywhere I could see, yet they were watching every move I made. "Where are you?" I shouted into the mic. "How can you see me?" The response wasn't a voice at first, but laughter low, broken and echoing like it was trapped inside an endless tunnel. It rose and twisted until it felt like the air itself was vibrating. SFX. Distorted laughter. "Where am I, Mike?" "Right here. I've been right here for 27 years. Ahead, through the curtain of snow, the highway curved gently right. My headlights caught a shape at the bottom of an embankment, a semi-truck, twisted and rusted, its trailer separated, its cab caved in. Old skid marks scarred the asphalt. Ever since my rig went off the road in that blizzard, ever since I jackknifed on the ice and rolled down that embankment just ahead of you, ever since I died alone while my CB crackled with voices of drivers who couldn't T-stop to help. As my headlights swept across the wreckage, a figure flashed in the driver's seat. Just a second. A man in a flannel shirt and trucker cap, his face pale, his eyes shining like animal eyes in the dark. SFX. Sudden static burst. "Do you see me now, Mike? Do you see my grave?" Then silence swallowed everything. The radio hissed once, then stilled. My rig thundered through the snow like a beast with no reins. My breath came in clouds that trembled in the cab's dim glow. I wanted to believe it had all been a trick of the storm, a hallucination of white lines and sleepless miles, but I knew better. I could feel something riding the frequency now, something old and patient. Music, low drone rising slowly. I keyed the mic with a hand that didn't feel like mine. "Who are you?" Static then? That same dead man's voice? Soft but near. 27 years, Mike. Watching trucks pass. Waiting for one to stop. Waiting for someone to remember. My foot eased off the accelerator. 80 dropped to 60, then to 50. My hazard lights clicked on by themselves, a slow metronome in the snow. "What do you want from me?" A pause. Then, for you to listen. For you to remember what truckers used to be. For you to tell them. Tell them we look out for each other. Tell them the road takes more than it gives. The CB speaker popped. SFX. Faint whispers and static underneath the voice. I swore I could hear a chorus of others. Faint, overlapping, like wind over broken glass. "You're dead," I whispered. "You're dead, and you're still here. Dead isn't the word. Forgotten is worse." The cab's temperature dropped. Frost filmed the inside of the windshield despite the heater blasting. My breath fogged the steering wheel. Something unseen moved behind me. A shift of weight. A creak of the passenger seat. Music. Single low piano note. Sustained. I didn't dare turn my head. "You said you've been waiting for me." "Why me?" "Because you're the one who can hear. Because you're the one who still talks on the radio. Because you're the one who remembers." For a moment, the snow cleared enough that I could see the twisted wreck in my side mirror. But the cab was empty now. No figure, no flannel, just a dead shell. Then the CB screamed a sound like metal tearing. High-pitched distortion, my headlights flickered. The dashboard lights blinked out. The engine roared higher, louder, as though something had taken the throttle from me. "Stop it. Stop." I slammed the brakes, but the pedal went soft under my boot. My truck barreled forward, unstoppable. "This is your route, Mike. This is your road. Do you know where it ends?" No. The world narrowed to the windshield. Snow streaking past like white comets. The ghostly voice filling every inch of air. My knuckles burned against the wheel. Then calm. Everything slowed. The engine cut. The truck coasted. I realized I'd come to a stop at the shoulder just beyond the wreck. My hazards clicked normally again. My phone screen now glowed, signal restored. The CB was silent. I sat there, shaking. My hand hovered over the mic. Slowly, almost without thinking, I pressed the key. "Tommy Martinez," I said. "I'm sorry." The radio stayed dead. 1 second, 2. then faint, like a breeze under a door. Thank you, driver. It's FX. Fading whisper, and then nothing but the snow. I drove the remaining miles to Oklahoma City in silence, every mile heavier than the last. At the truck stop, I asked about the wreck. The old-timer behind the fuel desk told me exactly what I already knew. A driver named Tommy Martinez. February 1998. Rollover in a blizzard. A good man. A family man. 3 shops have checked my CB since then. All of them said the same thing. Perfect condition. No explanation for that night, but I know. Every time I pass that embankment now, I slow down. I key the mic. I say a few words. Sometimes a faint voice answers back. Would you dare drive that stretch alone? At night? I've been driving this same route for 15 years, long enough to know every diner, every shoulder, every flickering sign as if it were tattooed on my memory. My name's Robert Hayes, and hauling freight between Phoenix and Denver is as routine to me as breathing. The roads have a rhythm, and I've followed it so often that I could almost drive it blindfolded. That's why what happened last November still gnaws at me, like a splinter under my skin I can't dig out. It didn't just scare me, it cracked the foundation of reality itself. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of desert night where the air turns crisp and the stars seem so close you could pinch them from the sky. I was hauling electronics from Tempe to a distribution center in Denver. Nothing about that load was unusual. I'd left Phoenix at 2 in the afternoon, my Freightliner humming along the high desert stretches. By 9:30, I was cresting the outskirts of Flagstaff, fuel gauge just under a quarter tank. Habit told me, always top off before the New Mexico stretch. There's a pilot off I-40 at exit 201, IVA used for a decade, clean showers, decent coffee, fuel prices that don't bleed you dry. But this night, something was wrong. The familiar neon blue and red pilot sign that should have glowed from 2 miles away wasn't there. Instead, I caught a flicker of yellow on my right. A weather-beaten sign that read Desert Rose Truck Stop in faded letters. Frowned. Maybe Pilot had sold out or rebranded. Strange, but not impossible. I'd passed this spot 3 weeks ago, and it had been normal. Still, instinct told me to fuel up. I took the exit and immediately felt the difference. The access road wasn't the wide, well-lit stretch I knew. This was a narrow, cracked 2-lane curling back into shadow. The asphalt crumbled under my tires, weeds clawing through the seams like veins. My stomach knotted. The parking lot opened up like an old scar, dimly lit with whole sections swallowed in darkness. The building itself looked like a low turquoise box left to rot since the 1970s. Paint peeled like sunburned skin. A few parking lot lamps buzzed weakly. Maybe 8 or 10 rigs sat scattered around, all of them relics. No modern Kenworths or aerodynamic Volvos. These were big chrome dinosaurs from another era. Their paint dulled, their logos faded. I parked next to a weathered Mack that looked ready for a museum display. Even the pumps were wrong. Mechanical dials clacked when the handles moved, flipping numbers instead of digital readouts. Diesel at 98 cents per gallon blinked at me, a price I hadn't seen since I was a kid. A chill ran up my spine. Inside, the world tilted further. The air smelled stale, faintly of burnt coffee and old motor oil. Dim amber bulbs cast everything in a jaundiced glow. Cracked linoleum underfoot. Wood grain paneling curling at the edges. Behind the counter stood an old man with thin gray hair and thick glasses, eyes slightly vacant, like he was looking through me instead of at me. "Fill up." His voice was slow, underwater. "Yeah," I muttered, handing him my credit card. He turned it over as though it were a dead insect. "We only take cash here, son." That was my first real warning. Every truck stop in America takes plastic, but I was tired. I just wanted fuel and a bathroom. I found an ATM in the corner, a flickering green screen, a slot too small for my card. When I tried to insert it, nothing happened. "ATM's broken," the clerk muttered without glancing up. "Bank closed in 87. His words slid over me like ice water. Wandered toward the food section, hoping for coffee. The shelves were lined with glass bottles of Coke and old-style labels. Candy bars wrapped in logos I hadn't seen in decades. Newspapers screaming headlines about the Challenger disaster. The percolator hissed like it had been brewing for days. When I poured a cup, the liquid was thick, black, and acrid. I glanced at the other customers, truckers in flannel and baseball caps, haircuts straight out of a family album. One man read a paper about gas prices finally hitting $1 a gallon. Another muttered about a new cassette player he'd installed. "What's the date today?" I asked one of them, voice shaking. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "November 15th, 1986. You feeling all right, son?" My blood went cold. I wasn't even born until 1987. My phone had no signal. It's not even a bar. Impossible. There were towers everywhere around Flagstaff. I stumbled outside into the cool desert air, my heart thudding. My Freightliner stood gleaming and modern among a graveyard of antiques. Like a UFO had landed in 1986, every instinct screamed, "Leave now." Climbed into the cab, started the engine, and shoved the shifter into reverse. Nothing. Forward, reverse, full throttle. The truck wouldn't budge. It was as though the tires were glued to the pavement. And then I saw them. The other truckers were no longer inside. They stood outside their rigs now, motionless, staring at me with those vacant eyes. Then silence swallowed everything. The engine roared under my hands, but my rig stayed pinned to the cracked asphalt like an insect under glass. Through the windshield, the crowd thickened, more drivers emerging from the building, drifting into the lot with the same blank expressions. 20, 30 of them now, moving in perfect rhythm, slow and deliberate, their boots crunching on gravel in unison. A tremor of pure animal fear climbed my spine. My CB crackled static as I grabbed the mic. "Breaker 129, this is Freight Dog at Desert Rose Truck Stop, exit 201. Anyone copy? It's only dead air." I tried different channels, emergency frequencies. Nothing but a low hiss. I glanced at my phone. No service. No time. My chest tightened. They were closer now. Through my side mirror, I saw pale faces, slack jaws, eyes that glimmered but didn't blink. Their clothes hung like costumes from another life. Their trucks, silent, no exhaust, no lights, sat like gravestones behind them. I slammed the shifter again, revving the engine until it howled. Tires squealed but didn't roll. Sweat dripped into my eyes. In the mirror, the first of them reached my steps, one hand lifting slowly toward the door handle as if pulled by some unseen magnet. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I shut my eyes and gripped the wheel. In that moment, 1,000 memories crashed through me. Linda's laugh. My kids' drawings pinned to the fridge, the blue glow of the Real Pilot sign. I pictured the correct pumps, the digital screens, the world of 2024 where I belonged. I held onto it like a lifeline. A thud rattled my door, another, fingers scraping metal. I forced my breathing steady, pictured the exit ramp under normal neon, and whispered to myself, "Wake up, get out." The rig lurched forward so violently I nearly hit the dash. My eyes flew open. The lot around me was bright and modern again. The familiar pilot sign blazed against the night sky. Current model rigs lined the lot. My phone showed full bars and the right date. My fuel gauge still hovered at a quarter tank, as if nothing had happened at all. Hands shaking, I pulled up to the pump, swiped my card, and filled the tank in silence. Inside, a young woman at the counter smiled. "How's your night going?" she asked. I swallowed hard. "Has there ever been a truck stop called the Desert Rose at this location?" Her brow furrowed. "Not that I know of. This pilot's been here 12 years. Before that, it was just empty desert." "Why do you ask?" I forced a laugh that didn't sound like mine. Just thought I remembered something different. The drive to Denver was the longest of my life. I didn't touch the CB. I didn't turn on the radio. The highway rolled beneath me in total silence. When I got home, curiosity clawed me open. I researched the area, and what I found hollowed me out. There had been a Desert Rose truck stop here. It had burned down on November 15th, 1986. 23 people had died, the owner, regulars, truckers, the cause never determined. The site sat vacant until Pilot built on it in 2012. I still run that route twice a month, still stop at the Pilot. But sometimes, late at night, as I approach exit 201, I swear I see a flicker of faded yellow out of the corner of my eye, a cracked sign swinging in a desert wind. I keep my eyes straight ahead. I keep driving, because I know the truth now. If I ever look too long, If I ever let myself believe that sign is real, I'll end up standing in that cracked parking lot with the others, empty-eyed, waiting for the next driver to join our eternal convoy of the dead. Would you dare stop for fuel at 98 cents a gallon? They say in 30 years of hauling freight, you learn a simple rule: never ask questions about the cargo. Hook it, haul it, deliver it, get paid. That code had kept me fed, kept my wheels turning, and kept my conscience quiet. But some jobs stick to your soul like tar. My name is Marcus Thompson, and what I'm about to tell you is the reason I don't sleep anymore. The reason silence feels louder than any highway I've ever driven. It began on an ordinary Thursday night outside Memphis. I was parked at a truck stop, half-drained coffee cooling in the cup holder, the glow of fluorescent lights painting long shadows across the asphalt. My brake timer was almost up when the phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Dispatcher's voice, brisk and businesslike, slid through the receiver. He offered me a load-sealed trailer, rush delivery, Little Rock drop-off by dawn. For hours, maybe less. The pay $3,000. Triple the standard rate. Too good to say no? I asked the one question every driver asks out of habit. What am I hauling? Medical supplies, he said instantly. Time-sensitive pharmaceuticals. Keep it sealed. Keep it cold. No stops except fuel. His voice carried that sharp edge of urgency, like he'd rehearsed the line 100 times. And I told myself I'd heard jobs like this before. The pickup location took me to a dead-end street on the edge of an industrial graveyard. Empty lots, abandoned warehouses, the kind of place where even the stray dogs seemed to keep their distance. A lone security guard waited at the gate. No company signs. No lights but the faint hum of a buzzing lamp over the dock. He handed me paperwork so thin it was almost suspicious. No manifest, no product list, just medical supplies typed in sterile black ink. The trailer was already running, a refrigerated unit purring at 38 degrees. White, unmarked, no logos, no numbers. Just blank steel and a hum that filled the silence like a heartbeat. I backed in, locked it, connected my lines, and the guard pressed a plain business card into my hand. One number, no name. Cargo sealed. Do not open it. If the alarm goes off, call that number immediately. His eyes lingered on me longer than they should have, like he was silently daring me to disobey. By the time I pulled onto I-40, the night stretched wide and empty, the glow of my dash casting faint reflections against the glass. The first hour was routine, clean road, steady hum of the reefer, nothing but me and the endless ribbon of highway. Then I heard it, a faint scratching from the trailer. At first I dismissed it as cargo settling, straps rubbing, boxes shifting. It happens. But the sound kept its rhythm, too precise, too deliberate. Nails dragging against steel. I turned the radio down, straining to hear. The scratching stopped as suddenly as it had started. Silence. Then just the hum of the refrigeration unit. I told myself I imagined it. That's what drivers do out here in the dark. You imagine things. 20 minutes later, the sound returned. Louder. Not just scratching. Scratching in voices. Muffled. Faint. Urgent. Argent. I eased onto the shoulder, heart thudding in time with the rumble of my idling engine. I stepped out, the night air heavy, and stood still by the trailer. That's when I heard it clear as day. SFX. Muffled pounding, faint cries, voices. High-pitched. Frantic. Pleading. Someone was inside. I froze, hand clutching the business card in my pocket. The instructions echoed in my head. Do not open it. Call this number. My throat was dry as I dialed. A call picked up on the first ring. Is there a problem with the delivery? Man asked. Calm, almost expectant. There are sounds. Coming from inside, I said carefully. It sounds like people. What you're hearing, he replied smoothly, are live medical test subjects, primates. They get agitated during transport. Perfectly legal. Perfectly contained. Your job is to deliver, not interfere. Primates? Lab animals? I wanted to believe him, wanted it to make sense. But as I stood there in the dark, the scratching turned to frantic banging. the muffled cries twisting into what sounded like words. Please, sobs. I told myself to drive, to finish the run. But as the miles rolled by, the noise grew unbearable. An hour later, I pulled over again. The voices weren't animals. They couldn't be. They were human. A woman's cry. A child's voice calling for help. The weight of 3 decades on the road pressed down on me in that moment. 30 years of professionalism, of trust, of silence. 30 years of never asking questions. And yet standing at the locked doors of that trailer, bolt cutters in hand, I knew if I turned away I'd carry their screams with me forever. My hands shook as I cut the lock. Metal snapped with a sharp finality. I tore through the seal. My pulse thundered in my ears as I pulled the door open. Effects. Door creaking open, sudden rush of cold air, then silence swallowed everything. The cold hit me first. I got a blast of refrigerated air, sharp enough to sting. Then my eyes adjusted, and the shadows inside took shape. They weren't animals. 17 human beings, women, children, even a young man shackled to the trailer walls. Their faces pale, their eyes hollowed by fear, their bodies trembling with cold and exhaustion. They stared at me like I was either a savior or another monster. I fumbled for my phone and called 911, my voice cracking as I gave the location. Minutes felt like hours as the cries swelled around me. Some begged me to cut their chains. Others just wept silently, their tears freezing against their skin in the chill. The pounding in my chest drowned out every other sound. I kept glancing down the highway, half expecting headlights to appear, half fearing the people who put them here were coming back. When the sirens finally wailed in the distance, relief hit me like a flood. Police, paramedics, flashing lights painting the road in frantic color. They swarmed the trailer, cutters snapping chains, blankets draped over trembling shoulders. But for every breath of relief, a darker thought gnawed at me. How many trailers like this were out there? How many drivers kept their heads down, took the money, and never asked? The FBI later told me the dispatcher, the guard, and the man on the phone were arrested within days. A trafficking ring using the guise of pharmaceutical shipments to smuggle human lives. 17 souls lived because I broke the rules that night.
Ow, but at what cost?
Because since that night, I've learned something horrifying. The screams don't stop once the trailer doors close. They stay. They echo. They wake me in the dead of night louder than any reefer unit ever could. And sometimes, when I'm alone in the silence, I still hear them scratching. SFX, faint scratching under narration, slowly fading. Was it only those 17? Or were there others still trapped, still waiting for a driver to cut the seal? I quit hauling after that. Couldn't face another sealed trailer. Couldn't take another anonymous job. Instead, I work with law enforcement now, trying to spot the signs I ignored for so long. But here's the truth that chills me most. That night, I nearly drove away. I nearly delivered those voices into the dark, and I can't stop wondering, how many others did? Would you have stopped? Would you have opened the trailer? Or would you have kept driving? The screams fading into the hum of the road behind you, because somewhere out there right now, another trailer is rolling down the highway, and the cargo inside is still screaming. SFX, low drone rising, then abrupt cut to silence. Would you dare return to this place? The hum of the highway was a constant lullaby beneath my wheels, a rhythm I'd trusted for nearly 2 decades. 18 years on the road had taught me every creak of my rig, every shift in the wind across the plains, and nothing had prepared me for mile marker 247. Even now, 6 months later, I still catch myself glancing at my mirrors, waiting for that shape in the darkness. My name's Daniel Cruz. I haul freight, mostly automotive parts, across the country. I've always prided myself on being the guy who doesn't cut corners. I keep my logs straight, my equipment tight, and most importantly, I choose my stops like my life depends on it, because it does. The truth is, driving isn't what gets most truckers killed, it's the stops. It was late October, the kind of night where the Nebraska sky stretches forever, the stars cold and sharp like pinholes in black velvet. I'd been running from Los Angeles toward Chicago for 9 hours straight, my rig steady as a heartbeat. The weather was clear, traffic was light, almost too light, and my mandatory 10-hour break loomed. I started scanning for a rest area that felt safe. Bright lights, other drivers, clean facilities. Mile marker 247 seemed perfect. The lot was a standard rest stop, clean and symmetrical, with separate parking for cars and trucks. Sodium lights cast pale halos over the concrete. For other semis idled nearby, their diesel engines low and comforting. I parked near the middle of the group the way you do when you're thinking about safety. I did my post-trip inspection, locked everything down, and settled in with paperwork in my cab. The night felt ordinary, routine, but my gut kept humming. Around 10:15 p.m., I saw it. A dark blue sedan, its paint almost swallowing the light, glided into the lot. Cars pull into truck stops all the time, especially on long drives. Families, college kids, nothing unusual. But this one didn't park in the car section. It prowled. Slow circles through the truck area, weaving between semis as if it were hunting. 1 lap, 2, 3. Finally it stopped, not to rest, but to watch. I couldn't see the driver's face through the tinted glass, but I felt his gaze like a cold finger against my neck. Alone, motionless, he sat angled where he could see every truck but couldn't easily be seen himself. Instinctively, I jotted down the plate number. Something in my gut whispered, "Remember this." 20 minutes passed. Sedan left, sliding into the night like it had never been there. I exhaled, told myself it was nothing, just a lost traveler, just my imagination. I crawled into my sleeper berth, the hum of idling trucks around me, and closed my eyes. For hours later, the night had deepened. A pale mist clung to the edges of the lot when I stepped out to use the restroom. That's when I saw it again. The same dark blue sedan, parked in a different spot, angled differently but still watching. This time, the driver was out, middle-aged, average height. Dark clothes that seemed to drink the shadows between trucks. He moved slowly, almost casually, but his head turned at each rig, his eyes lingering on license plates and company markings. When he noticed me watching, he froze. Then, without a word, he slipped back into the sedan and drove off, taillights disappearing into the fog. My stomach dropped. This wasn't confusion. This was something else. 2 hours later, as dawn edged the horizon, I got up again to check my load. And there it was. The sedan parked again, binoculars glinting faintly as the driver watched the trucks like a hawk. This time I didn't hesitate, and my hands trembled as I dialed 911. SFX, faint static crackle from phone line music. Low, growing drone under narration, the dispatcher's voice was calm but distant. "We'll send a patrol car. At least 30 minutes. 30 minutes felt like forever. I hung up, heart hammering, and made a decision. I wasn't waiting to see what this man wanted. I threw my inspection together, started the rig, and rolled back onto I-80. My hands clenched the wheel until my knuckles ached. In my mirrors, the highway stretched empty and dark. "You're a few miles. I thought I'd left it behind." Then, in the far edge of my mirror, a glint of blue. The sedan, matching my speed, matching my lane changes. It's never too close, never too far. My throat went dry. Then silence swallowed everything. I pressed harder on the accelerator. The sedan did the same. I slowed. It slowed. My pulse pounded in my ears louder than the engine. This wasn't random. Someone was stalking me. I tried every trick I knew. Took an exit, looped the ramp, re-entered the highway. The sedan followed, steady as a shadow. I pulled into a truck stop for fuel, parked under glaring lights. Across the street, the sedan idled, headlights off, waiting. When I left, it resumed its vigil, never breaking the pattern. SFX. Distant tires on wet asphalt music, low heartbeat like bass, pulsing hours passed. Darkness lifted into a weak, gray dawn over Iowa. My nerves were raw, my eyes darting to the mirrors every few seconds. This wasn't a coincidence or some bored driver. Whoever he was deliberate, persistent, skilled, the kind of patience you only see in predators. I called my dispatcher. My voice cracked. "I've got someone tailing me. Dark blue sedan. Been following since Nebraska." His voice went tight. "Get to Des Moines. Terminal's got security. Don't stop anywhere isolated." Traffic thickened near the city, a living shield of vehicles. I thought I could lose him. For a few precious minutes, his car vanished behind a wall of semis. But then, just as I started to breathe, there it was again. slipping between cars, always keeping line of sight, always there. I called 911 again. Palms were slick against the wheel. He's still following me. This isn't random. The Iowa State Police dispatcher told me to head for a way station just outside Des Moines. Officers on duty, immediate help. I followed instructions, my heart hammering with each mile. The sedan stayed a quarter-mile behind, unwavering. I could almost feel the driver smiling. Then I swung into the way station, and the sedan vanished. One moment it was there. The next, nothing but empty road. Like it had been swallowed by the earth. SFX. Abrupt cut to silence music. Single, sharp metallic note. Then fade to nothing. State police met me at the station. Professional and calm, but without the car, there was little they could do. They took my statement, documented everything, told me to stay alert. I drove to my company terminal, still shaking, adrenaline making my hands tremble on the wheel. That afternoon, the safety director called me in. 2 other drivers had filed similar reports. Same kind of sedan, same pattern, different nights, different states. All along I-80, the FBI got involved. Months of surveillance, hidden cameras, quiet interviews. Eventually, the story spilled out: a truck hijacking ring, organized and ruthless. They used sedans as spotters, following drivers for hundreds of miles, waiting for the right moment to strike. At least 12 hijackings, millions in stolen cargo, beaten drivers. One man hospitalized for a week. When I testified in court, I saw him, the man from the sedan, average, forgettable, like a shadow that had learned to walk. He'd followed me for more than 300 miles, waiting for me to stop where his partners could swoop in. If I hadn't trusted my instincts, I'd have been next. I survived because I acted. But the road changed for me that night. Now, every stop feels like a test. I vary my routes. I park only under glaring light. I check my mirrors obsessively, my eyes always hunting for a shape in the dark. The FBI agent told me predators pick truckers because we're alone, predictable, and easy to trap. Highways are their hunting grounds. The only defense is vigilance. 6 months later, I still see that dark blue sedan in my dreams. Not headlights, not taillights. Just the outline. Watching, waiting. Sometimes I wake up sweating, convinced it's outside my cab again, because paranoia isn't a flaw out here. Survival. And on nights when the sky is clear and the highway empty, I swear I feel it, a presence trailing just beyond the mirrors, patient and quiet, waiting for me to let my guard down. Would you dare return to mile marker 247? The road was silent, but I swear it listened. Every groan of my tires on the black ice, every cough of the diesel engine, echoed back at me like the highway itself was holding its breath. My name's Frank Rodriguez, and I've been hauling loads across this country for 28 years. It's long enough to know when a stretch of road doesn't want you on it. But that night, outside Van Horn, Texas, I ignored every warning the land was giving me. I've been paying for it ever since. It was January. Storms had swept across the southwest, carving glassy ribbons of death across the asphalt. Dispatch was on me about a late load. My logbook was a mess, and I was running on coffee fumes. I should have parked. Every nerve in my gut told me to. But the promise of a warm bed in Phoenix and a few hours of silence away from the road had me pressing forward, headlights cutting through freezing fog that swallowed the desert whole. That was when I saw them. Headlights in my mirrors, small car, following me. It's too far back to be threatening, too steady to pass, but weaving, just slightly. I told myself the driver was just fighting the same slick road I was. Still, I couldn't stop glancing back, watching those headlights drift side to side like a drunk ghost searching for its line. Around 1:30 a.m., I hit Deadman's Hill, a downhill stretch notorious among drivers for accidents. My stomach knotted. In my mirror, the little car suddenly lost it, fishtailing, tires screaming against invisible ice. I moved left, praying they'd recover. But they didn't. They spun twice, then slammed sideways into the median. The crunch of steel carried even over my roaring engine. Then the lights went black. I pulled over hard, heart hammering. Emergency kit in hand, I ran into the cold that cut straight through my jacket. Glass glittered across the asphalt like shattered stars. Through the fogged passenger window, my flashlight beam found her, a young woman, maybe early 20s. Blood trickled down her forehead, breath shallow but steady. Alive. Thank God she's alive. I dialed 911 with shaking hands. Dispatcher's voice was calm, but her words weren't. 45 minutes, maybe more, before help could reach us. Too many wrecks tonight. She told me to keep the girl warm, keep her breathing. 45 minutes. I could do that. I turned back to grab blankets from my cab. That's when I froze. My eyes fell on the load I was hauling, construction equipment. A crane, improperly secured, overweight, chains cut short to shave time. Any inspection, any cop, would ruin me. Fines, suspended CDL, career gone, mortgage gone, family struggling. I looked back toward her car. Steam hissed from the twisted hood. The faint shape of her body slumped over the wheel. Oh, she was breathing. She'd last until help came, wouldn't she? The rain bit into my face as I stood there, torn between decency and survival. A single choice that would define the rest of my life, and I made the wrong one. I climbed into my cab, shut the door, and drove away. Every mile from that wreck felt like I was dragging chains behind me. I checked the radio, news sites, searching for word of her fate. Nothing. I convinced myself silence meant survival. I convinced myself I'd done the only thing I could. But the lie didn't hold. Hours later, on my empty return trip, guilt gnawed at me. Each reflective road sign seemed to flicker with her bloodied face. Each mile marker whispered what I'd abandoned on that frozen shoulder. And then the road began to change. The afternoon sun had burned away the storm. Dry pavement, clear skies. But in my mirror's ice. Black patches glistening across lanes that vanished the second I looked straight at them. A shimmer of fog ghosting through the desert heat. My throat tightened, and then I saw her, standing on the shoulder, watching me pass. Same clothes, same gash on her forehead. Unmoving. Eyes following my truck with an emptiness that turned my blood cold. I blinked and she was gone. But 10 miles later, she was back. This time in the median, broken posture, torn clothes hanging off her frame, her head tilted at an unnatural angle, lips moving soundlessly. And then her hand rose, pointing. At me. I slammed the wheel tighter, muttering, "No. I'm tired. I'm seeing things. Just tired." But when she appeared again, standing dead center in my lane, I knew. The road had given her back to me. She wasn't going to let me pass. I hit the brakes, tires screaming against the asphalt, until I stopped 50 feet from her. She stood there, blood dripping, eyes hollow but locked on mine. Then, step by jerky step, she began walking toward me. Her mouth moved, repeating words I couldn't hear, her broken body staggering closer, and then silence swallowed everything. The silence inside my cab was suffocating. No engine rumble, no hum of tires, just the sound of her hand pressing against my windshield, palms smeared with blood, leaving prints that glowed in the moonlight. Her lips kept moving, over and over. Yeah, I finally read them. "You left me to die." Svex. Low, distant whispering. I twisted the key. The truck wouldn't start. I grabbed the CB. Static hissed. My phone, no service. I was trapped. Cab a coffin, and she was outside, clawing her way in. Her breath fogged the glass, even though she was dead. Her finger tapped rhythmically, each knock leaving a crimson circle until one word formed in blood across my windshield. Murderer. The sound cracked something inside me. My hands shook so violently I dropped the radio mic. "I tried," I whispered, but my voice was swallowed by her stare. She wasn't listening. She wasn't leaving. Suddenly she climbed the running board, her face pressed against the driver's window, her eyes bloodshot, brimming with tears drilled into me. I swear I could feel the weight of her stare pressing through the glass. Then, a sound that didn't belong to this world escaped her. SFX. Piercing scream. Layered with distorted echoes, I clamped my hands over my ears, but the scream cut straight into my skull, filling every corner of the cab, vibrating the metal frame. It was grief, rage, a howl that carried every second of her death alone in that car. When it stopped, I was sobbing, chest heaving, vision blurred, and she was gone. The truck roared back to life, as if nothing had happened. I sat frozen, drenched in sweat, before forcing the gear shift forward. The highway stretched ahead, empty, but I knew I wasn't alone anymore. Not really. Back in Houston, I tried to bury it. I tried to believe she'd moved on. But Maria Santos wasn't gone. Not from me. She followed me. In reflections, gas station windows, puddles, even my bathroom mirror. Always pointing, always bleeding. Her lips repeating the same words, "You left me to die." Didn't matter where I went. Florida, Montana, even my own driveway, she was there. Not bound by the highway, but by me, by my choice, by my cowardice. I confessed, years later, told the cops everything. Too late for charges, too late for justice. I met her family, apologized through tears, set up a scholarship in her name. I thought maybe her ghost would forgive me. But Maria doesn't forgive. She still waits for me on empty roads. Still fogs my glass with her breath. Still writes murderer in blood I can't wash away. Even now, years later, I see her. Every reflection, every silence. Her voice crawls out of static when I'm alone at night. And sometimes I wonder, is she waiting for me to die so she can drag me where she went? Or is she keeping me alive, forcing me to remember her final moments forever? I don't drive anymore. I can't. Instead, I ride in ambulances now, saving lives as an EMT, trying to balance the scales, trying to keep anyone else from dying alone like she did. But deep down, I know the truth. Some debts can't be repaid. Some ghosts don't let go. And when I look in the mirror tonight, she'll be there, her finger raised, her mouth moving. You left me to die. Would you dare return to that frozen highway? The first thing that unsettled me was the silence. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the kind that presses against your chest and makes every breath sound too loud. The sky over Amarillo was a smear of dying orange, fading into a dark that felt heavier than it should. I'd been on the road 16 years, and I thought I knew what loneliness was. But that night, Highway 287 showed me something else. Something waiting just beyond the edges of reason. My name's Paul Carter, and I've spent more nights behind the wheel than in my own bed. Trucking is a strange life, always between destinations, never quite belonging anywhere. Still, the loneliness creeps in during those long desert runs, when the CB crackles with nothing but static and the headlights carve tunnels into emptiness. That's why most of us look forward to convoys. A few trucks sticking together, keeping each other awake, trading jokes on Channel 19, safety in numbers, familiar voices cutting through the dark. But that night, the voices I heard weren't meant for the living. I'd left Dallas hauling furniture, bound for Denver. The run had gone smooth, skies clear, traffic light. I was making excellent time. As the sun slid below the horizon, I picked up chatter drivers forming a convoy north of Amarillo. The lead introduced himself as Big Jake. He had that old-school authority in his tone, the kind of voice that makes you sit up straighter without knowing why. He promised a clean run through northeastern New Mexico, 5 rigs strong, and welcomed more company. He said, safety in numbers. Protection through the night. I keyed up, gave my CB handle O'Near. He answered immediately, directed me to a truck stop where they were staging. Everything about it sounded right, professional, organized, exactly the kind of run a smart driver joins. When I pulled in, I saw them. 5 rigs lined up neatly, spotless, despite the dust of the panhandle. A Peterbilt 379 gleamed up front, chrome catching the last hints of daylight. Behind it, a Kenworth W900, a Freightliner Classic, a Mack Superliner, and an International 9900. Beautiful machines, all from the 90s or earlier, but so perfectly maintained they looked brand new. I parked behind the International, grabbed my thermos, and walked toward the lead truck to meet Jake. The cab was empty. Strange, but not alarming. Maybe he was inside grabbing coffee. I went in, nodded to the clerk at the counter, and scanned the diner-style room. No drivers, no one with that road-worn look. The boots and jackets, the heavy fatigue etched into their faces. Just families eating pie, a couple locals sipping coffee. I asked the clerk about the convoy outside. She frowned. Convoy? What convoy? She leaned over, glanced out the big window, then back at me. All I see is your truck. My stomach tightened. I turned to the window, expecting to see nothing but empty asphalt. But the rigs were there, lined up as neat as soldiers, chrome gleaming under the fluorescent lot lights. The clerk gave me a strange look, and I muttered something about fatigue before heading back outside. 9:15 sharp. My radio crackled to life. Big Jake's voice, calm and commanding. Let's roll. The engines ahead of me thundered awake in perfect unison. One by one, they moved toward the on-ramp. I fired up my own rig and fell in line. Sixth in formation. My pulse quickened, not from fear, not yet, but from the thrill of being part of something steady and precise. Convoys do that. They make you feel less alone. The desert swallowed us as we headed north. For the first hour, it was almost pleasant, perfect spacing, steady 70 miles an hour. The other drivers spoke now and then, commenting on road conditions, sharing bits of banter. It felt like every other good run I'd ever had, except something was wrong. We hadn't passed a single car, not southbound, not northbound, nothing. Highway 287 is lonely, sure, but not like this. Even in the dead of night, there should have been headlights, taillights, someone out there besides us. Yet the road stretched on, empty and endless. Then I noticed the headlights, or rather the lack of them. None of the trucks in front of me had their lights on. No headlights, no markers, no taillights.
Ow.
Just black silhouettes gliding effortlessly through the desert night. At 10:30, I finally keyed the mic. "'Kay, Jake, might want to remind the boys it's dark out here. No lights." For a moment, silence. And then the reply came, not Jake's steady drawl, nothing else. Hollow, echoing like someone speaking from inside a concrete tunnel. "We don't need lights where we're going, Paul. We see just fine in the dark." A chill ran up my spine so sharp I nearly dropped the mic. My name. He'd said my name. I hadn't given it.
I'll leave my handle.
No one out there should have known who I was. I looked at the rigs ahead, their shapes warping in the night, fading and flickering as if they weren't really there at all. My GPS chimed, and my heart lurched. According to it, we hadn't moved an inch. The same location repeated again and again, mile markers looping endlessly. My radio crackled once more. Big Jake's voice, but broken, more wind than man. "Second thoughts, Paul. Too late, you're with us now. Once you ride with the Brotherhood, you ride forever." I slammed my brakes. My mirrors caught something that made my breath lock in my chest. Behind me stretched not 5 rigs, not 10, but dozens, maybe hundreds. An endless convoy of trucks, old and new, their lights dead, their drivers nothing but shadows behind glass. A procession without end. Then silence swallowed everything. I gripped the wheels so hard, my knuckles turned white. My rig kept moving, even with the brakes pressed flat. The wheel locked, stiff as stone. The accelerator pushed itself forward, dragging me deeper into the convoy's endless flow. My truck wasn't mine anymore. I was a passenger, just another piece of machinery chained to something far older, far darker. The radio hissed, voices layering one over the other. Dozens of voices. Hundreds. All hollow, all inhuman. "Welcome to the convoy, Paul. The eternal road. No rest. No destination." My mirrors reflected rigs from every era. Dust-choked Macs from the 50s, boxy Internationals from the 70s, chrome beasts from the 80s. Their windshields glinted, but behind the glass, nothing but silhouettes. Drivers, with no faces. Figures slumped like corpses, but still gripping the wheel. I shouted, cursed, begged. Nothing mattered. My truck surged on, chained to the convoy. Music, low drones swelling with static SFX, faint whispers bleeding through CB radio. The stories came next, each voice recounting its end. A heart attack in '87, a rollover in '93, a gunshot during a midnight robbery in '98. I listened, unwilling, as they relived their deaths again and again, their agony sewn into the asphalt, each one alone, each one stranded in the dark. It's now bound to an endless highway that swallowed time itself. I wanted to shut my ears, but the radio made sure I couldn't. "Tell me, Paul, Big Jake's voice rose above the chorus, ragged, mocking. "What'll be your story?" Something deep inside me cracked. My breath came fast, panicked. My vision swam. I thought of Jennifer, of our kids waiting for me. Their faces, their laughter, the warmth of home. The only anchor I had left. My grandfather S. words came back like a whisper from the grave. "Remember the ones you love. Will keep you in the world of the living." I closed my eyes, clung to the image of my family, and forced myself to believe in them harder than I'd ever believed in anything. My wife's touch, my children's voices, the promise of coming home. The wheel softened under my grip. The brakes groaned back to life. My rig shuddered, slowed, veered toward the shoulder. Behind me, the convoy thundered on, endless and eternal. As they passed, their drivers turned hollow eyes. Toward me, eyes filled not with anger, but envy. 1,000 souls watching me escape what they never could. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the night was still. I sat shaking, hands trembling, breath coming in ragged gasps. My GPS blinked. According to it, I'd traveled exactly as expected. No loop, no lost hours, just Amarillo to Raton, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. At the truck stop, I asked the clerk if she'd ever heard of phantom convoys. Her face tightened. She said Highway 287 had a reputation. Drivers swore they'd seen trucks vanish into thin air, whole convoys gliding by without lights. Most people dismissed it as exhaustion, desert illusions. But she'd heard enough stories to know something darker prowled that stretch of road. I finished my haul to Denver without incident, but I never forgot. Even now, years later, I hear voices sometimes when I tune my CB, calls for convoys. A brotherhood waiting in the night. I don't answer anymore. Can't, because I know who's calling. Somewhere, Big Jake and his Eternal Convoy are still out there, rolling through the endless dark, waiting for the next driver to fall in line. And maybe, just maybe one night you'll hear them too. Would you dare join? The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the usual restless hum of diesel engines lined up on the interstate, not the chatter on the CB, just silence, and a feeling that made the hairs on my arms rise. My name is Steve Martinez, and after 19 years on the road, I thought I'd seen everything. But that morning outside Bakersfield, I learned that the worst monsters don't hide in shadows. They hide in plain sight, wearing uniforms and carrying badges. It was a Tuesday run, hauling computer parts from Los Angeles to Phoenix. I'd made the trip dozens of times. Logs neat, weight legal equipment checked twice. I was feeling good. Maybe I'd get back to Tucson in time for dinner with my wife and kids. Around 10:30 a.m., the signs lit up. All commercial vehicles report to way station. Routine enough, or so I thought. I pulled into the lane, eased onto the platform, and waited. That's when my gut tightened. The station looked wrong. Faded paint peeled from the walls. The flags drooped, weather-stained. The officers, if you could call them that, wore uniforms that seemed almost right but not quite. The patches were crooked, the colors off. Even their boots looked like cheap knockoffs. One of them, a heavy-set man in his 50s with mirrored sunglasses, waved me down. His badge gleamed, but the way he held himself, aggressive, almost predatory, set my nerves buzzing. License, registration, logbook, no greeting. I handed everything over. My paperwork was flawless, but he flipped through it like he was searching for a hidden code, scribbling notes onto a clipboard. His silence stretched too long, the sound of paper turning suddenly ominous. Finally, he shoved it back. Inspection Bay shut it down. Don't leave the cab until instructed. His tone was flat, but there was something beneath it, like a challenge. I rolled forward into the covered bay. Usually these things take 15 minutes. This one dragged on over an hour. The officer circled my rig again and again, flashlight in hand, even though the sun blazed overhead. Ain't. He lingered near my cargo doors, snapping pictures, muttering. I sat in my cab, fingers drumming the wheel, my pulse hammering harder with every tick of the clock. Finally, he rapped on the door.
Fast.
Inside the building, the unease only grew. Dim lights buzzed overhead. 2 other men sat at desks, but their eyes stayed locked on their papers, as if pretending I didn't exist. The air smelled of mildew and stale coffee. Didn't feel like a government office. It felt like a trap. "We found multiple violations," the officer said once we were in a small office. His voice was almost rehearsed. "Load securement, logbook discrepancies, equipment issues, serious fines." I frowned. "That's impossible. My truck passed inspection 2 weeks ago. Everything's legal." He smiled without warmth. "Total fines, $8,000. Pay now or we impound your truck and cargo for 90 days. 8,000. My knees almost gave out. It didn't make sense. No violations cost that much. But the threat was real. Losing my load would crush my business. Maybe even cost me my home. I don't have that kind of money on me. Can't I pay through my company? He leaned closer, and I saw his smile for what it was, a predator's grin. Cash only. Or, we have friends nearby who can help with a loan. That was when the dread crystallized. This wasn't about safety. This wasn't the dot. These men weren't cops, they were criminals. A woman in civilian clothes appeared, carrying a stack of papers. She slid them toward me. Short-term loan, 8,000, 30% interest. Truck as collateral. Sign here. Her tone was sugar, but her eyes were cold. I stared at the pen in my hand, torn between ruin and desperation. And then through the office window I saw it. Man I hadn't noticed before was unloading boxes from my trailer. Not in uniform, just a plain van parked beside my rig, filling up with my cargo. My breath caught. This wasn't about fines. This wasn't about money. This was organized theft. A whole fake way station built to trap drivers like me. Then silence swallowed everything. The silence didn't last. It shattered under the weight of my pounding heart. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I want to call the California Highway Patrol. Now." The reaction was instant. The officer's eyes narrowed. His voice dropped an octave. "Interfering with an inspection is a federal offense." He stepped closer, the air thick with menace. The woman gathered her papers, moving quickly, almost like she was rehearsed for this moment. I realized then they'd done this before. Dozens of times. Maybe hundreds. I turned toward the door. "I'm calling 911. His hand shot out, clamping down on my arm. His grip was iron. For a split second, I froze. 19 years of training telling me not to resist an officer. But this wasn't an officer. This was a predator. I tore free and bolted for the exit. Through another window, I caught a glimpse that made my blood turn to ice. 6 other trucks sat lined up. But their drivers? Nowhere. Some rigs looked like they hadn't moved in weeks. Weeds sprouting around their tires. My stomach lurched. I sprinted to my cab, slammed the door, locked it, and fired the engine. The officer was at my side instantly, pounding the glass, shouting. His voice was muffled, distorted by the roar of my engine, but his rage was unmistakable. I threw the rig into gear and rolled toward the exit. That's when I saw the gate, a heavy steel barrier, controlled electronically from a booth where another fake officer sat smirking at me. No way out, unless I made one. My hands shook as I gripped the wheel. The rational part of me screamed, "Don't do it. You'll wreck the truck. Lose everything." But another voice whispered louder, "Stay, and you'll lose more than the truck. You'll lose your life." I floored it. The gate exploded under the impact, splintering into shards as my rig burst through. Behind me, chaos erupted. Shouts, sirens, scrambling footsteps. Ahead, the highway stretched like salvation. I didn't stop until I saw the sign, police -2 miles. At the station, my story was met with skepticism. Who wouldn't doubt it? A fake way station? But when I led the California Highway Patrol back to the site, their doubt turned to horror. The place was real, the scam was real, and the bodies were real too. The investigation uncovered everything. Fake officers, the fraudulent loan operation, the cargo theft ring, 40 drivers targeted, millions in stolen goods, the 6 rigs I'd seen abandoned. They weren't abandoned at all. Their drivers had been murdered. That revelation still haunts me. The leader got life without parole. His crew got decades behind bars. The way station was demolished, reduced to rubble. But even now, when I drive past that stretch of highway, I feel their eyes on me, the eyes of the 6 men who never made it home. And sometimes late at night when I roll into a legitimate way station, I swear I see familiar faces in the shadows. Faces with badges that gleam too brightly, smiles that linger too long, shadows that stretch just a little too far. Because uniforms don't always mean safety, and badges don't always mean law. Would you dare stop if the next way station sign lit up? Or would you keep driving, knowing what might be waiting beyond the gate?